So the Cold War was pretty bad, hey? The idea of getting nuked at any moment is pretty scary, and that old desk is not going to do much to save you. Now, any event like this is hard to blame on one person, but if there had to be one, it's probably this guy. Sorry, who's that, you're asking? Oh, well, that's Grigory Rasputin. Now, to say that he may have been the downfall of the Russian Empire, it's not really true. Everything about this guy is spooky and mysterious, so it's easy to imprint that idea onto him. Either way, he at least played a part in the end of the empire. Also, I think saving this many photos of him means I'm haunted now. Okay, let's flash back to 1969. 1869. Root beer was invented, women got to vote in Wyoming, and Grigory Yefimovich Rasputin was born. He was a peasant farmer in Siberia for most of his life, but just like you or me, he had his midlife crisis at 28. And he left to go find religion. And it sure worked. He came back quite the changed man. He even stopped drinking alcohol in Siberia. Of course, being the divergent crazy guy he was, he started to gain a following with the local folks. He held a lot of orthodox religious ceremonies, but also liked to do a little, special prayer on the off days. And like any good cult leader, rumors popped up of Greg having his female followers serve him. To be fair, dude was creepy. A lot of these things might just be rumors people like to add to his story. But they also could have happened too, because everything about this man is just pure insanity. Somehow after all this, he became a religious leader in another town, and the church loved his charisma. That connected him to a lot of other important people, and eventually he met Militsa and Anastasia, who were, you guessed it, married to the emperor's cousins. The princesses were so starstruck at the time that they decided to introduce this guy, to the royal family, and they loved him. Now, back in the day, if you had a disease, you were probably going to get a once-over from a doctor who didn't know much and then probably just die young anyway. Turns out the emperor's son actually had hemophilia, where you have a hard time not bleeding to death. He was delicate, and this made his parents kind of desperate. QR guy, Greg, to be introduced to him after he's had a major episode of bleeding. The kid feels better almost right after meeting the mystic man. Now, like any good mother, Alexandra was enthralled with what this creepy guy did to her son. There was actually this time where Rasputin left town for a little while, and the kid got a really bad bruise, so his mom wrote Rasputin a letter, and the kid was fine 2 days later. If anything, that's just proof of the man's power. Honestly, I'm starting to see the appeal behind those eyes. So Greg's magic touch gets him in good with the royal family, and like anyone would, he starts calling in favors. The Russian public was pissed about him overall, though. The economy was in the dumps, World War I was chooching along, and people were understandably strained. To suddenly see this dude start spiritually advising the Tsar, that was the limit, and these people decided it was time for him to go. So 1914 rolls around, and some nobles were not happy about his closeness to the Tsar's wife, and decided that killing him was the best course of action. That year, they hired a peasant lady to just straight up shiv him outside of his home. He almost died, and he was actually freaked out so badly that he started drinking alcohol again. A couple years later, some more nobles come up with a new plan. This guy named Felix invites Rasputin into his home and gets him to eat some desserts and wine that are laced with cyanide. Gives him the old James Bond. But guess what? Dude doesn't even react to cyanide. So Felix panics, but then he just remembers that he has a gun and he decides to shoot Greg. Why didn't he just do that in the first place? So after they kill him, they take his clothes and they do a little dress up. They pretend to go back home so his neighbors don't get suspicious about his absence, and then they sneak back to Felix's place to get rid of the body. When they go to grab him, Greg jumps up and attacks Felix. Dude was poisoned and shot, and still had enough energy hours later to take somebody down. So he books it out of the basement and starts hauling ass through the snow. One of the other, good guys also remembers that he has a gun and actually kills him. For real this time. Then they do the old Sopranos and wrap his body in a rug and toss it in the river. Mystic no more. Problem solved, right? Russia saved, right? Well, these guys thought they'd done a good job saving their empire, but joke's on them, because the public had already decided to massacre the whole Romanov family. Not even 3 weeks later, they chased them out of their house, tracked them down to their safe house, and just killed the gosh darn heck out of the whole family. But you know what? In exchange, the Russian people became free and democratic. It was time for a new golden age. Well, a golden 5 years. After that, some guy named Vlad decided that everything ought to belong to everyone.
Hit it.